I always believed my life was a perfect equation. An equation where every variable was controlled, every constant in its rightful place, and the result always approximated to absolute fulfillment. The biggest and most beautiful variable in that equation was Eric Chen. We met at the Research Institute, spending endless nights together under microscopes, grabbing hurried dinners in the lab, and dreaming of a day when we could change the world with biotechnology. Our love blossomed amidst genetic formulas and peptide chains, as firm and logical as a proven theorem. 7 years later, he became my fiancé, and our passion project, Rebirth, was finally nearing its fruition. Just a little more. Evelyn, Eric's warm, deep voice echoed in the quiet 3 a.m. stillness of the lab. He stood behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, his chin resting lightly on my shoulder as we both gazed at the screen displaying the perfectly aligning gene sequence. When this project succeeds, we'll get married. You can choose any venue you want, a sun-drenched island or an ancient church in Europe. I'll indulge you. I smiled, leaning my head back against his steady chest. His breath warmed my ear, familiar and safe. I only need you. That wasn't a lie. Eric Chen was my indispensable other half. We weren't just lovers, we were teammates, soulmates. He understood my ambitions, and I admired his sharp intellect. We were the golden couple, admired by the entire A Corporation, living proof that love and career could thrive side by side. My equation was almost at its final solution. Until a Tuesday afternoon, when an invisible crack began to appear. That day, Eric received a call while we were discussing the final clinical trial phase. He glanced at his phone screen, a flicker of unease in his eyes before he quickly stood up. "I need to take this outside," he said, his voice trying to sound natural. "Probably just the material supplier." I nodded, but my gaze unintentionally followed his retreating figure. He didn't head towards the noisy hallway but turned into the emergency staircase, the most secluded and private spot. I couldn't hear what he was saying, only saw his tense posture, so unlike his usual composure. A few minutes later, he returned, a forced smile on his lips. "It's nothing, just a minor issue." He quickly changed the subject. A scientist's intuition told me a strange variable had just been introduced into the equation, but a woman in love's reason dismissed it. I trusted him. I trusted our 7 years. The second crack appeared a week later. Eric said, "I have an urgent meeting with a partner outside the city and will be home late." He kissed my forehead, hastily changed, and left. But in his rush, he mistakenly grabbed the briefcase I had prepared for my meeting tomorrow, leaving his personal leather briefcase on the sofa. I discovered the mix-up half an hour after he left. I called him, but there was no answer. He was probably driving. I sighed, intending to neatly place his briefcase on the desk. But as I picked it up, a strange, hard, cold object inside the zippered compartment made me pause. It wasn't his familiar Montblanc pen, nor his business card holder. Curious, I unzipped it. Neatly nestled inside, beside his usual notebook, was a pitch-black USB drive, no symbols, no markings. Its metallic casing felt chillingly cold. I had never seen it before. At work, we had strict regulations regarding storage devices. All had to be company-issued and encrypted. This USB drive was completely alien. My heart began to pound. A voice in my head screamed at me to close the briefcase and put it back, that I should respect his privacy, that curiosity would kill trust. But another voice, cold and logical like a scientist's, whispered that an abnormal data point could not be ignored. It had to be analyzed. And perhaps, deep down, I was afraid. The unease from last week's secret call returned, seeping into my mind like a virus. Trembling, I carried the USB drive into my study. The room was filled with images of us. Photos from business trips, awards we had won together. All seemed to look at me, questioning. I plugged the USB into my computer. A nameless drive icon appeared. I double-clicked. A window popped up, requesting a password. Not just one, but 3 layers of nested security. It used an encryption algorithm I had never seen. It was so complex and sophisticated it could stump even the best hackers. A chill ran down my spine. Who would need such robust protection for a personal USB drive, unless what was inside was a secret that absolutely no one could know, especially me? The stubbornness and pride of a challenged genius surged. I cast aside all hesitation. I had to know. I plunged into the work. The computer screen lit up with complex command lines and algorithms. I forgot time, forgot dinner. In my mind, there was only one goal: to break through this fortress. This was no longer about feelings, it was an intellectual challenge, and I never backed down from a challenge. More than 4 hours passed, sweat dotting my forehead. Finally, after a decisive command, the last layer of encryption shattered. Click, a dry sound emanated from the computer speakers like a lock being opened. A single folder appeared on the screen. It was nameless. My heart stopped for a second. I moved the mouse cursor, feeling as though it weighed 1,000 pounds. Click, 5 files. Their names pierced my heart like daggers. Fiancé Contract Phase 1 PDF. Rebirth Project Raw Data Transfer. Swiss Bank Account Statement, PDF. GD2 Media Plan. And finally, a video file. Meet Cam Ducey 2001 megapixel 4. The air in my chest was sucked dry. Fiancé was the pharmaceutical corporation, theoreme's sworn rival. My hands trembled so much I couldn't control them. I managed to click on the video file. The media player opened. The frame was slightly shaky, seemingly recorded from a hidden camera placed in the corner of a room. It was a luxurious hotel suite, and sitting opposite the camera was Eric Chen. His face, which I had loved and admired for 7 years. He was smiling, a confident, slightly smug smile. And the person sitting opposite him, a woman elegantly raising a glass of red wine, was none other than Anya Liu, the ice queen of Fiancé Corporation. Everything is in here. I heard my fiancé's voice, cold and unfamiliar. He pushed a USB drive identical to the one I was holding across the table. All the raw data from the Rebirth project, enough for you to get ahead of theorem by at least 6 months. Evelyn Mo will never know. Anya Liu smirked, a victor's smile. I always knew you were smart, Eric. After Fiancé launches the product, the position of vice director of the research center will be yours. And of course, she glanced towards the camera, me too. He chuckled, leaning across the table, taking her hand and placing a kiss on it. The video ended. The computer screen went dark, reflecting my vacant face. My ears rang. I couldn't hear the ticking of the clock, nor the wind whistling outside the window. I only heard the sound of my world. My perfect equation shattered into 1,000 pieces. The sound wasn't resounding, but a deadly silence. A black void swallowed every light and hope. 7 years, an entire youth, a love, a career, a dream, all just a meticulously calculated game. And I, Evelyn Mo, the genius scientist, was the most foolish pawn in the game of my own life. The shock didn't last long. When the video ended, a chilling stillness enveloped me. No tears fell, no silent screams. Instead, the brain of a scientist, trained to confront abnormal variables and failed results, activated an emergency protocol. Emotions were suppressed, pushed to the deepest layers of consciousness. What surfaced was cold analysis and ruthless logic. Subjects: Eric Chen, Anya Liu, hostile organization. Fiancé Pharmaceutical Corporation. Their objective: steal the Rebirth project. Potential consequences: my career shattered, my life's work stolen, theorem Corporation suffering heavy losses. My status: alone, isolated. I took a deep breath, the cold air filling my lungs. The first thing to do was to erase my tracks. I copied all the data from the USB drive to an external hard drive, encrypted with my own algorithm. An algorithm I believed no one on Earth could crack. Then I wiped clean the access history on my computer, ensuring no one could know I had touched it. Finally, I placed the USB drive back into Eric Chen's leather briefcase, putting the briefcase back in its original position on the sofa, as if nothing had happened. I looked at the clock. It was almost midnight. He would be home soon. I went to the bathroom, staring at my face in the mirror, my eyes bloodshot from concentration, my skin pale. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to conjure the smile and gentle gaze I had given him for 7 years. I have to act. The play of my life, and I had to be the best actress. When the sound of the door code echoed, I was sitting on the sofa reading a science magazine, my expression calm. Eric walked in, looking tired. "You're back," I smiled, stood up, and took his coat. "How was the meeting? Was it smooth?" He wrapped his arms around me, a familiar hug, but now it only filled me with disgust. "It was fine. The old partners were a bit difficult, but I handled it." He kissed my hair. I missed you so much. A blatant lie. I detected a faint scent of unfamiliar perfume on his shirt, a delicate and expensive fragrance. Anya Liu's scent. I almost let out a mad laugh, but I managed to suppress it. Me too, I whispered, burying my face in his chest to hide my expression. Have you had dinner? Shall I warm something up for you? That night, I lay beside my enemy, listening to his steady breathing. How could a traitor's sleep be so peaceful? As for me, I lay awake. In the darkness, I meticulously planned. I couldn't tell anyone at theorem Chairman Zhang, though he trusted me, was a cunning fox. He would never risk war with Vien Tin based solely on my words. They would demand proof, and when I presented it, they would seek a quiet resolution, sidelining me to protect the corporation's interests. And Eric Chen. They would easily dismiss him as a misguided individual and let it pass. No, I wouldn't accept that outcome. This was my war. The one who stole my life's work must pay a price he could never imagine. I needed a weapon that didn't belong to theorem, unbound by corporate rules. A sharp, ruthless, and effective weapon. The name sprang into my mind almost immediately. Lucius. In Camden City, Lucius was a legend. He wasn't merely a lawyer. People called him a predator, someone who specialized in solving cases no one dared touch, toppling empires thought to be impregnable. He was cold, mysterious, and had never failed. Most importantly, through some preliminary research on the underground information network I had access to, I learned about his past. 10 years ago, Lucius's family company was bankrupted after a treacherous hostile takeover, and the mastermind behind it was none other than Vien Tin Corporation. The enemy of my enemy. That was the ally I needed. 2 days later, I obtained Lucius's personal phone number. I didn't call, I just sent a single text message. Theorem's Rebirth project. I have proof Vien Tin is stealing it. I believe you'll be interested. Evelyn Moe. 5 minutes later, my phone vibrated. An address, an old tea house in a small alley in the old quarter. And a time, 9 p.m. tonight. The quiet, tranquil Forgetfulness tea house, with only the gurgling sound of water from a small rock garden. Lucius sat in a secluded corner, his back to the door. As I approached, he didn't turn around, simply gestured for me to sit on the chair opposite him. Once I was settled, he slowly turned. He wasn't as I imagined, none of the glitz or polished demeanor of top lawyers. Lucius was thin, wearing a simple black shirt. The only striking feature on his angular face was his eyes. Those eyes were deep and sharp as knives, looking at me as if they wanted to pierce through every layer of defense I was trying to erect. Ms. Moe, he spoke, his voice deep and emotionless. You have 10 minutes. I didn't beat around the bush. I placed the encrypted hard drive on the table. In here is the contract between Eric Chen, my fiancé, and the co-project leader of Rebirth and Vien Tin, along with a video recording of his meeting with Anya Liu. They are stealing my entire project. Lucius merely glanced at the hard drive, then looked straight into my eyes. Why come to me instead of reporting to Chairman Zhang? Because I don't want to compromise. I want a war, I replied, my voice chillingly calm, and I want Vien Tin to fall. A barely perceptible smirk flickered across Lucius's lips. Ms. Moe, you overestimate yourself and underestimate Vien Tin. This could simply be the story of a betrayed woman seeking revenge in a fit of anger. Why should I believe you? I leaned forward, my gaze meeting his directly. Because I didn't come here with tears, but with data, I articulated clearly. And I know about the deep-seated feud between you and Vien Tin 10 years ago. I don't need your pity, Lucius. I need a weapon. In return, I will give you what you've been waiting for 10 years, a chance to reclaim everything, principle, and interest. Silence enveloped us. Lucius's sharp eyes narrowed. He was assessing me, weighing every word, every expression. He was like a leopard observing its prey, deciding if it was worth pouncing. What are my terms? He finally asked. You'll get everything, I said. Evidence, internal information, absolute cooperation from me. You just need to do what you do best, destroy them. The price I have to pay. 30% of the shares of the company I will establish from the ashes of this war, I answered without hesitation. Lucius laughed, a real laugh, but it brought no warmth, only making the air even more frigid. You haven't even started the war and you're already thinking about dividing the spoils. Quite confident, aren't you? My confidence is based on my abilities and your hatred, I countered. We will be a perfect pair. He stopped laughing, scrutinizing me from head to toe. All right, I'll take the case. But remember, Ms. Mo, once you're on my boat, there's no turning back. If you hesitate or show weakness, I'll be the first to push you overboard. Me too. I stood up, not offering my hand for a shake. If you betray me, Lucius, I guarantee you'll regret it more than Veen Tin ever will. With that, I turned and left the tea house, leaving the hard drive on the table. I didn't need to look back to know Lucius was watching me, and on his lips there was probably that same enigmatic smirk. Stepping out into the small alley, the cold night wind of Camden City hit my face. I didn't feel relieved, I only felt a terrifying clarity. To fight one devil, I had just made a pact with another. My war had officially begun, and from this moment on, every step was a gamble for life and death. My life from that day on split into two non-intersecting halves, operated in parallel by two different versions of myself. The first version was Evelyn Mo by day. She was still the dedicated project lead at theorem Corporation, still smiled gently when Eric Chen brought lunch to the lab, still discussed engagement plans and guest lists with him. She was patient, loving, and completely unsuspecting. She was a masterpiece of acting, a perfect performance down to every detail. The second version was Evelyn Mo by night. After Eric Chen had fallen into a deep sleep beside her, she would quietly go to her study, opening the military-grade encrypted communication channel Lucius had set up. On the screen, she was not a fiancé but a cold strategist, analyzing every move of the enemy, planning every next step with a partner she never fully trusted. She was the shadow, the truth, the suppressed rage, waiting for the day to explode. Our game began with the first move from me. I knew Eric, under pressure from Veen Tin, would surely try to extract more data, and he didn't disappoint me. Evelyn, a week after my meeting with Lucius, Eric came to me, his face filled with eagerness. I think we should speed things up a bit. I've optimized a few auxiliary gene sequences. It could shorten the final synthesis phase. Take a look and then give me access to the core system so I can synchronize it. He handed me a USB drive, this time a company-issued one. His face was full of confidence, confident that I wouldn't suspect my colleague and soon-to-be husband. I took the USB drive, smiling. You've worked hard, let me see. That night, I analyzed his optimizations. They were very clever, but their real purpose was to create a sophisticated backdoor in our system for easier data copying. How ridiculous. He dared to use the very knowledge I taught him to outsmart me. All right, if he wanted data, I would give him data. Over the next 2 days, I created a perfect version of the Rebirth project data. It contained everything Veen Tin desired, breakthroughs, flawless results. But deep within the molecular structure of the synthesized gene sequence, I had embedded a perfectly disguised faulty gene. It was like a time bomb. In the initial test phases, it would show no flaws. But when introduced into mass production on an industrial scale, with just a specific temperature catalyst, the entire structure would collapse, turning the final product into a pile of worthless waste. The damage would not only be financial, but also a fatal blow to Veen Tin's reputation. Perfect, Eric, I said, handing him the updated data, my voice full of pride. Your optimizations combined with my analysis are truly unparalleled. He looked at me, his eyes gleaming with a triumph he tried to conceal. I know, we're a team. He took my achievement, the weapon I handed him for self-destruction, and happily carried it to offer to the enemy. While I set the trap from within, Lucius launched his attack from without. He didn't touch Thean A or the Rebirth project. Instead, true to his predator style, he attacked Veen Tin's unexpected weak points. A series of sudden lawsuits were filed in Camden City Court. One lawsuit from a small European company for Veen Tin's patent infringement from 7 years ago. Another lawsuit from a group of workers regarding unsafe working conditions at an old factory. Then an investigative report appeared in a reputable financial magazine, raising questions about murky figures in Veen Tin's environmental reports. All were small, seemingly unrelated incidents, but their simultaneous appearance sent Veen Tin's legal and public relations departments spiraling. They were like incessant buzzing mosquitoes, not deadly, but extremely annoying, draining their resources and focus. I knew this was Lucius clearing the battlefield before the real big battle began. My first direct confrontation occurred at Camden City's annual charity gala for the business elite. Eric and I walked side by side, still the perfect couple in everyone's eyes. And then I saw her. Anya Liu, resplendent in a wine-red evening gown like a thorny rose. She was talking to a few partners, but her sharp eyes continuously swept across the ballroom. When she saw me, she smiled, a polite but subtly meaningful smile, then walked towards me with Eric. In that moment, I saw Eric stiffen slightly. He was afraid. "Hello, Mr. Chen." "Hello, Ms. Mo." Anya Liu's voice was sweet. "You two look so perfect together." "Thank you, Ms. Liu," I replied with a smile, the smile of a happy fiancé. "I hear Ms. Mo's Rebirth project is nearing success. Truly admirable," she said, her eyes fixed on me. Vien Tin is also following it very closely. It was a provocation, a subtle declaration of her victory. She wanted to see me flustered, angry, or afraid, but I calmly raised my wine glass. "Thank you for your interest, Ms. Liu," I said softly, my voice clear. "But rebirth is like a child. It cannot be rushed. Every step must be taken carefully. Otherwise, even a small error in the structure can destroy the entire work." I paused for a second, looking directly into her slightly surprised eyes. "I believe someone with as much business experience as you certainly understands this better than anyone." For a moment, the smile on Anya Liu's lips stiffened slightly. She had heard my warning. A flicker of doubt crossed her eyes before being masked by her characteristic coldness. She couldn't be certain, but I had sown a seed of doubt in her heart. "Of course," she replied, regaining her composure. "I wish you good luck." With that, she turned and walked away, pulling along a terrifyingly silent Eric Chen. I stood there, calmly sipping my wine, feeling its bitter taste on my tongue. The game had begun. The first pawns had been sacrificed. The trap was set. The enemy had smelled the delicious cheese, unaware it was bait. That night, when I got home, I received an encrypted message from Lucius. Only 7 words, but it sent a cold current running through my body. "They took the bait. Phase 2 begins." Phase 2 of the plan unfolded with an oddly tense silence. At theorem, I diligently worked, completing the final steps of the true Rebirth project, while meticulously planning the engagement ceremony with Eric Chen. This facade of happiness was my strongest fortress, shielding all my activities in the shadows. Meanwhile, Vien Tin, with the precious data Eric provided, was racing at full throttle. Internal intelligence sent by Lucius showed they had built a new production line, investing hundreds of millions in synthesis and preparing for trials. Anya Liu frequently appeared in financial newspapers, confidently hinting at a groundbreaking product about to shake the pharmaceutical industry. Eric Chen also grew more arrogant by the day. He believed his future at Vien Tin was secured. He didn't know he was gleefully sitting on a time bomb I had personally crafted. But Lucius was not a man satisfied with a single-layered plan. He always sought out weaknesses, the weakest links. Every action has a motive. "Evelyn," he said to me through the encrypted channel, "money and status are common motives, but they're too simple. We need to find something deeper." And he found it. One evening, Lucius sent me a file. It wasn't a report on Vien Tin, but a detailed financial analysis of Eric Chen's Swiss account. As expected, a large sum of money from Vien Tin had been transferred there, but what was unusual was the outflow. Every month, a fixed, very large sum was anonymously transferred. Its destination wasn't a shell company, an investment, or a luxury asset. It was transferred to an Lac Private Sanatorium, one of Camden City's most expensive end-of-life care facilities. My heart skipped a beat. This didn't make sense. Eric's parents had both died in an accident years ago. He had no other relatives, at least according to what he told me. So who was at an Lac Sanatorium? Who was so important that he would betray everything to pay for their medical care? I started to search my memory, trying to find any missing pieces. And then I remembered an old wooden box, carefully locked, tucked in the bottom drawer of his wardrobe, where he always said it contained old mementos and never let me touch. That night, after making sure Eric was fast asleep, I managed to open the box. It wasn't difficult with a few delicate tools. Inside, there was nothing valuable, just a few children's toys and a single faded photograph. The photo showed Eric as a teenager, smiling brightly beside a thin, pale little girl with very bright eyes. The girl was sitting in a wheelchair, and on the back of the photo was a faded handwritten note: "Big Brother will always be by your side. Serena." Serena Chen. All the shattered pieces suddenly came together into a complete, heartbreaking picture. I remembered the initial inspiration that drove us to pursue the Rebirth project. It was Eric's idea after he read a document about a rare degenerative genetic disorder, an incurable disease that slowly claimed the lives of its patients. The truth hit me like a hammer blow. Our Rebirth project, with Chairman Zheng's caution and ethical compliance, would take many more years to produce a final product. His sister didn't have that much time. Vien Tin didn't just promise him money, they promised him something even more precious: a glimmer of hope. They promised to use their immense resources to accelerate the project, bypass legal hurdles, and create a treatment for Serena in the shortest possible time. His betrayal came not just from greed, but from a desperate and distorted love. He chose to sacrifice me, to sacrifice our shared dream, to save his only living relative. The next afternoon, I told Eric I needed to meet an old partner. Instead, I drove straight to Lac Sanatorium. And there, in a quiet room overlooking the garden, I saw the little girl from the photo. Serena Chen was now a young woman, still in a wheelchair, her body frail but her eyes still clear and bright. That night, I didn't cook dinner. I sat in the darkened living room, waiting for Eric to come home. He walked in, surprised to find me sitting in the dark. "Evelyn, what's wrong? Why no lights?" I didn't answer. I just quietly looked at him. "I went to Lac Sanatorium this afternoon," I spoke, my voice chillingly calm. "Your sister, Serena Chen, she's very beautiful." Clang, the leather briefcase in Eric's hand fell to the floor. All the composure, arrogance, and calm he had desperately tried to maintain for so long shattered into 100 pieces. His face turned ashen, his eyes wide with horror and disbelief as he stared at me. How did you know?" he stammered. "Who do you think I am, Eric? A fool who only knows how to fall in love." I stood up, walking towards him. "You used your sister's pain as an excuse to betray me, to betray everything. Do you think that makes your actions noble?" "I had no other choice," he screamed, his desperation finally exploding. "Do you know what it's like to watch her suffer every day? theorem is too slow. Chairman Zheng only cares about profit and protocol. Anya Liu, she promised me, she promised to save Serena." "By destroying me?" I sneered. "Anya Liu used your desperation perfectly, but did you ever wonder why she was so kind? Why a ruthless person like her would care about your sister's life?" Eric froze, confusion clearly visible in his eyes. "Because this was never about your sister, Eric," I continued, my voice as cold as ice. "This is a clan war. Anya Liu wants revenge, revenge for her father." In his breakdown, Eric told me everything. He recounted how Anya Liu had shown him evidence that, years ago, her father and Chairman Zheng were partners. They had laid the first bricks of the technology that would later become the foundation of theorem, but ultimately, Chairman Zheng used deceptive tactics to push Anya Liu's father out of the company, seizing all the fruits of their labor. Stealing Rebirth wasn't just a business transaction. For Anya Liu, it was about reclaiming her family's legacy. And I, along with Eric Chen and his sister, were all just pawns on her chessboard of vengeance. I looked at the man kneeling at my feet, sobbing uncontrollably. There was no more love or hatred left in me, only emptiness. He was both pitiable and contemptible. I turned and walked out of the apartment that had once been our home without looking back. This war had become much bigger than I ever imagined. It was no longer just my battle. It was a storm born of family feuds, desperate love, and dark ambitions. Pulling out my phone, I sent an encrypted message to Lucius. "Things are more complicated than we thought. This is a clan war. Investigate the past relationship between Chairman Zheng and the Liu family." The screen lit up with his almost instantaneous reply, concise and sharp as ever. "Understood. The real storm is coming." 3 months later, the entire city of Camdu held its breath, awaiting the event dubbed the dawn of the pharmaceutical industry. Vien Tin Corporation hosted a lavish international press conference at the city's largest convention center to announce the resurrection, product their version, based on the stolen data from the Rebirth project. They were so confident they broadcast it live globally. I sat in a dark car parked across the street with Lucius. Through the tablet screen, I could clearly see the triumphant look on Anya Liu's face as she stepped onto the stage. Chairman Zheng of theorem was also present in the front row, his face grim, there to witness his own defeat. Eric Chen was not there. After our confrontation that night, he had been completely isolated by Anya Liu, a pawn whose usefulness had run out. "Are you ready?" Lucius asked, his eyes never leaving the screen, his voice still as calm as a placid lake. "I've been ready for 7 years, since I started this project," I replied. On stage, the live demonstration began. A Vien Tin scientist began the final synthesis step, explaining the process with proud declarations. My heart wasn't racing, I only felt absolute stillness. Everything had been programmed. "And now," the scientist announced loudly, "just heat it to 75 deg C, and the final catalyst will activate, and we will have the resurrection compound." The digital thermometer on the large screen steadily rose. 70, 72. At that exact moment, instead of crystallizing into a beautiful jade-green compound as in the simulation, the solution in the reaction flask suddenly frothed, then rapidly turned into a thick, useless grayish-brown sludge. The entire auditorium fell silent. The scientist's smile froze on his lips. Cameras quickly panned to Anya Liu's face. Her confidence shattered in a second, replaced by extreme confusion, then horror, and finally, fury. Vien Tin's entire technical team descended into panic. "That was our cue. Let's go," Lucius said. The main doors of the convention center swung open. Lucius and I walked in, all eyes, all cameras turned towards us. Amidst the chaos, we calmly walked straight onto the stage. Anya Liu looked at me as if she had seen a ghost. "Evelyn Mo, what are you doing here?" I didn't answer her. I took the microphone from the stunned scientist. "Welcome, ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice echoing across the auditorium, clear and firm. "My name is Evelyn Mo, the true project lead of theorem Corporation's Rebirth project. What you have just witnessed is not an accident. It is an inevitable outcome." I explained scientifically and precisely about the faulty gene I had embedded, about the activated time bomb. I exposed how they had stolen an incomplete work and blindly believed they could achieve success. When I finished, Lucius stepped forward. He didn't say much, he just signaled his technician. Immediately, the large screen behind the stage lit up. The video of Eric Chen and Anya Liu's meeting was shown to the entire world. This was followed by the contract, bank statements, and all the evidence of an elaborate industrial espionage conspiracy. Vien Tin Corporation has not only failed scientifically, Lucius's voice was like steel, they are also fraudsters and thieves. We will pursue this lawsuit to the fullest extent. The scene that followed was an earthquake. Vien Tin's stock price on the international exchange plummeted within minutes. Investors screamed. Police and authorities swarmed in immediately. The empire Anya Liu tried to build on deceit and hatred collapsed right before her eyes in the most humiliating way possible. I looked towards the front row. Chairman Zheng was looking at me, his gaze complex admiration, relief, and even a hint of fear. He knew the canary he once kept in a cage had now become a phoenix, one he could no longer control. 6 months later, the Kamdu City Court delivered its verdict. Anya Liu, Eric Chen, and a host of high-ranking Vien Tin executives received appropriate prison sentences for commercial espionage and fraud. Vien Tin Corporation went bankrupt, its assets frozen and auctioned off to compensate investors. I had left theorem right after the press conference. Chairman Zhang had offered me the position of vice president with control over the entire research center, but I refused. I couldn't stay in a place filled with the shards of the past. Today, I stood in my own office. It was on the top floor of a brand new technology building in the heart of Kamdu City. The glass wall overlooked the entire city. On the frosted glass door was a simple inscription, Evelyn Mo Biotechnology Corporation. "Not a bad view," a familiar voice said from behind. I turned and smiled. Lucius, in a sharp suit, was leaning against the door. He had fulfilled his role brilliantly, not only helping me win, but also helping me acquire the best technological assets from Vien Tin's ruins. He had gotten his revenge and his 30% share in my company. "Thank you for your investment, shareholder Lucius," I said, a hint of teasing in my voice. I only invest in sure wins, he replied, walking closer to stand beside me and look out at the city. Our relationship was no longer client and lawyer. We were partners. A partnership built on absolute respect for each other's intellect and capabilities. So, what's the next plan, Madam Chairwoman Mo? He asked. I looked at the state-of-the-art laboratory beyond the glass, where the team of top scientists I had personally recruited was working. At its center was the perfect, true structural model of the Rebirth project. To finish what I started, I said, my voice full of confidence and serenity. To create a new equation where the variables are decided by me. Lucius nodded slightly, a rare, genuine smile gracing his lips. I took a deep breath, feeling the warm sunlight on my skin. The storm had passed. Eric Chen, Anya Liu, the hatred and betrayal all had receded into the past. Before me now was an unlimited future, an empire built by my own hands. At 32, my life didn't end after a betrayal. It truly began.